What is the Bengals' biggest position of need? I know there's several of them, certainly a lot throughout the defense and obviously the offensive line as well. But do me a favor, get in the comment section, pick one for me right now. What is the Bengals' biggest position of need? Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some team needs for Cincinnati. So basically, ESPN got together with all their NFL Nation reporters, and they all identified the three biggest positional needs for each team. Of course, the ESPN NFL Nation reporter for the Cincinnati Bengals is Ben Baby. He does a fantastic job covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Draft analysts named prospects for the needs. So Baby lists three top needs, and then their guys, Matt Miller and another guy as well, basically picked a prospect that was not projected to go in the first round. So somebody that was projected to go in a later round that could perhaps fit that need for each team. Here's what Ben Baby had to say for his top needs for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got defensive end, linebacker, and safety, all of which certainly massive needs for the Cincinnati Bengals. Is that their top three? I think you could kind of go back and forth on that, right? I think a lot of people probably would have interior offensive line on there as well, but there is no denying that the Bengals need to get better at these three spots. Let's take a look here at what Ben Baby had to say in his article on ESPN. He said Cincinnati is still looking for a long-term edge rusher who can take over when Trey Hendrickson's prolific run comes to an end. Joseph Ossai showed some flashes last season, but the Bengals could still use another dominant pass rusher. Elsewhere on the defense, a linebacker who could start in a year or two would be helpful. Bengals have not seriously addressed that position in the draft since 2020. As for the secondary, landing a free safety to play behind Geno Stone, but who has a future starter potential, is also important. Overall, well said there from Ben Baby. Let's take a look at those three groups here. Defensive end, of course, you had Trey Hendrickson. The ongoing dispute between Katie Blackburn, Bengals organization, and Trey Hendrickson certainly at play, but I do expect him to be back for 2025. Joseph Ossai, I've been very candid about Ossai. I would have let him walk. But you get him on a prove-it year, just a one-year deal. We will see if he can get some of that talent that he showed at Texas and really bring it to the table for this football team in 2025. Behind that, I like Cam Sample, but he's coming off the Achilles, of course. Miles Murphy, you took first-rounder a couple of years ago. That is blown up in your face. Cedric Johnson, your sixth-round pick out of Ole Miss last year, I have a lot of high hopes for, though, as well. Linebacker-wise, Jermaine Pratt, of course, requested a trade early in the offseason. Still have him here on the step chart because, as of now, he's still a member of the football team. But I would be surprised if he was back in 2025. You got Oren Burke, Super Bowl champion with the Philadelphia Eagles in there as well. But I don't view him as a starter. I view him as a guy that's kind of taking over that third linebacker role when Akeem Davis-Gaither left to be a starter with Arizona. You got Shaq Hayward, Mumajong Maeda, and Craig Young also in that room right now. Safety-wise, also been very vocal about, hey, I would let go of Geno Stone, right? Jordan Battle kind of concerned you with his play there at the beginning of the year, but he finally finished strong. Geno Stone also, by the way, got to give him some credit. He finished strong as well. Behind that, Dejon Anthony, Jalen Key, Tyson Anderson, who's a special teams ace, but can he go out there and play safety for you? I don't know. PJ Jules as well. Lots of questions there at that safety spot. No doubt Cincinnati needs to draft one in the draft. Now, do you agree with Ben Baby's top needs? Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes or N for no. It is the pinned comment of today's show. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, that is totally fine. You can ignore it. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. All right, so I told you that ESPN Matt Miller was going to come up with a top prospect that fit those needs for Ben Baby. And the first one that he came up with, the only one that they came up with, was James Pierce Jr., which is kind of interesting because, again, a stipulation here was that it was somebody that wasn't a first-round prospect, projected to go in the first round. Now, some people have James Pierce Jr. going in the first round, but apparently ESPN does not, and this certainly fills a massive hole when you're talking about James Pierce Jr. perhaps coming to your football team in the second round. Here's what Matt Miller had to say about James Pierce Jr. He said, Pierce is the speedy pass rusher the Bengals need opposite Anderson, or could serve as the backup plan should Henderson sit out the 2025 season following a trade request. Look, James Pierce Jr. in the second round would be awesome. I remember sitting here as the season was kind of winding down, kind of getting into our draft talk for the very first time, And we were sitting here talking about James Pierce Jr. at number 17 overall, and I still think there's some teams out there that would consider taking James Pierce Jr. in the first round. So if you can get him in the second round, heck yeah, sign me up. I do have my questions on whether or not he falls that far. As I mentioned, there are some people out there that are still mocking him to go in the first round, kind of the late end of that first round, because there is a lot of potential, and a lot of people sometimes, organizations will draft on what they believe someone's ceiling could be. I think James Pierce Jr. could definitely have a very high ceiling, but the question, of course, is what the floor is going to look like. Look, you have to draft an edge rusher, and I wanted to have this conversation here because getting involved with the comments, some of you guys seem to think that, oh, no, we can just kind of roll back with what we've got there at that edge spot. And look, I got to be honest with you, that's completely outlandish, right? You might love Joseph Ossai, that's fine, but if your plan is Joseph Ossai is going to be your next guy there with Myles Murphy and Trey Hendrickson, no, that's not good enough. That's not even close, to be completely honest with you. We have tried that over the past couple of years, and it has not worked at all. It's been Trey Hendrickson or nothing from a pass rush perspective. That has to get cleaned up. They will take an edge rusher at some point in this draft. Maybe it's not the first round, maybe it's not the second round, but they will get a new body to add to that room. Absolutely no doubt about that. I thought that was obvious. I think most of you guys probably agree with me, but I know there's a few people out there that are seemingly okay with what the Bengals have at that edge spot. We'll continue with our show here in a minute, but first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks, because today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. PrizePicks also has the Flex Play. It's what we're rolling with as far as our season-long Flex Play goes for football season, which obviously is a long way away, but you can still get these PrizePicks in. Go with the less than on Jared Goff passing yards, the less than on Travis Kelce receiving yards, as well as the less than on Jaden Daniels rushing yards as well. The beautiful thing about the Flex Play, you don't have to get all 3 of those correct. You can actually miss one of them and still have an opportunity to double your money. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, second half of today's show here. Bill Barnwell of ESPN came up with first-round trades for all 32 teams in the National Football League. And he did sit there and say, hey, like, this obviously isn't going to happen. This is very much a far-fetched thing. Each team, making a trade, obviously not going to happen here in the first round, but he did have Cincinnati trading back, and I thought it was a good proposition. This is what Barnwell's trade idea was. He says Cincinnati gives up pick number 17 in the first round to the Houston Texans, but still keeps a first-round pick, 25 overall, and then they're going to get a third-round pick, number 79, from the Houston Texans, and a fifth-round pick, number 166, from the Houston Texans, so they add 2 additional picks. Should the Bengals consider trading back in the first round? Let me know in the comments. Type A for yes or B for no. I think this is totally a yes for me. I've been saying this for a while. I don't think it would be a bad thing. You're kind of at that spot, right? You're kind of at an awkward spot, as we'll kind of get to later on in today's show. It's not like you got a top 10 pick. But let me know. Should the Bengals consider trading back in the first round? Type A for yes or B for no. Here's what Barnwell had to write for ESPN. He says, the Bengals have whiffed on several defensive draft picks as Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins have gotten expensive, which means they don't have many options besides trying again. Getting as many day 1 and day 2 picks as possible on defense would give them the best shot at finding cheap contributors. At their current first rounder might come a little too late, as the Falcons and Cardinals are also desperate for pass rushers ahead of them. Maybe they should take an edge rusher on day 2 and focus on defensive tackle or secondary help here. Look, I am not opposed to trading back, as I've said several times here on this show. Again, you only have 6 picks right now, and you have a ton of holes, despite the fact that you got several superstars on your football team, and T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. I question if the Bengals are capable in terms of making this happen, right? They would trade back. They definitely wouldn't trade up, right? That's not something they would do. But they've traded back in the past, and I could see them doing it again. But you also have to understand it's a situation where you're on the clock. You're looking at your board. All of our guys that we love, okay, they're gone. Okay, we got to get out of here. We got to get on the phones with another team. We got to send these picks back. We got to understand what we're getting, and you don't have a ton of time in order to make that happen. So I question if Cincinnati is capable of doing that because, it's the Bengals, of course. After all, 17 is just an awkward spot to pick, in my opinion, right? It's not a top 10 pick, but at the same time, it's not the last pick, right? You didn't win the Super Bowl. You're not picking last. So there's some good guys that are going to be there, but this draft isn't a loaded draft. Sure, there's some positions that, people really like in this draft, but I would consider this one of the weaker drafts in recent years. You're not probably going to get a superstar can't-miss guy at 17. There's going to be some risk with whoever you would take at that 17 spot. I hope they address their needs, right? As we've talked about a lot here on the show. You can't just draft the position. You got to draft the player, right? Because if you draft the position, that's where, things can get a little hairy on you. You got to fall in love with the player and ultimately take them. I just hope they go after their needs and understand that, hey, bringing in a tight end early is not going to do any good for you, right? You brought back Mike Gesicki. You re-signed Tanner Hudson, Cam Grandy, Drew Samples coming off the best year of his career. He's still under contract, right? Your tight end room, despite the fact Derek Hall Jr. is going to miss all of 2025, your tight end room is in good hands, right? Running back, yeah, it's a loaded running back draft. Cincinnati probably will take a running back, but don't mess around and take one in the first 2 rounds, right? You got your running back, your franchise running back in Chase Brown. He's unbelievable. Obviously, don't think about taking a quarterback. But besides that, you really got needs all over the place, and there's a lot of guys that could help fill those needs. I just hope that's what Cincinnati does, and I would say I have confidence that they're going to at least attempt to make that happen. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already at youtube.com/Bengals TV. We are here all off season long. Do not miss any of our coverage. Hit that sub button right now.